about this? Are they trying to hide something? Or is this a genuine struggle? And if it does turn out that it was a genuine struggle, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready to see... Well, I am ready to see what's going to happen. I'm totally ready. I'm here with my popcorn. But, serious face, this could turn out not necessarily in the most dominating fashion that we would potentially expect from this team.
Oregon has been a little bit of a sordid story throughout this major so far. It hasn't really gone the way that a lot of people have expected or seen as of yet. But, you know, again, if there's two teams where I think in the position that we're in the lower bracket final, it is all or nothing to find yourself with a possibility to slay the dragon that's already burnt your village at least once in this tournament alone. It's just everything is on the wall. Everything is here, and these are two teams where they work better sometimes in the pressure. They're happy to lean into it, happy to get aggro and respond to the chaos that is ensuing in and amongst it. And, you know, with this set of familiar bands, I think it's going to fall yet again to intense, insane gunfights.
Well, I'm excited to see if that is the case, but we did talk before about the fact that because these are two teams who are particularly known for their aggressive playstyle, we have had to see a lot more evident coordination come out from both of them. And this is a really interesting map because obviously throughout the course of Stage 1 of EUL and the other regional leagues, a lot of teams have had to figure it out. They've had to figure out what the best way of doing things is, what the best way of going about it is, and learning and adapting as time goes on. I mean, one really notable thing that's sort of changed as the course of the season has transpired already is when you go down to, for example, a basement defense, what was initially incredibly sort of non-negotiably popular was to do a construction take. But nowadays you actually see laundry and freezer stairs take be a lot more favorable than it was before. So already we've seen a lot of changes. And I'm excited to see how these two teams do go about that coordination and methodology and how that fits into the adaptations that have been made to this map over the course of the season so far.
Ying is on the board for WTG. We've seen Ying get some play from Virtus.pro, but we didn't see her at all, obviously, in the previous map. So, for me, what I'm hoping here, if I'm looking at the potential of this going to 3 maps and I'm putting on the VP goggles and going, what could they do here? Lean aggressively into BDS. We saw them structurally start to fall apart before because, well, BDS kept on finding flaws, holes, routes round the side of whatever Virtus.pro were doing on their attack or their defense, straight through the middle, or, well, just loop against them. Either way, it started to play in their favor. I want to see a little bit more of the same from Virtus.pro because they can do it very well when they have the confidence to. They've been able to hit heads with Rogue very confidently, and it showed in the results. BDS so far, it's been a little bit hit and miss. Maybe it's the pressure, maybe it is the kind of heft of this game. Either way, it's starting as it always does in a battle of blue.
I'm definitely intrigued by the Ying pick, as you mentioned before. A lot of teams, Rogue most notably, like to ban Ying against Virtus.pro because they know that this is an operator that they feel particularly comfortable on. Now, in a lot of cases, if you are going to be playing those kind of visual impairment operators with the flashes, with the smokes particularly, usually you use them against a team that's playing a mirror, but mirror is evidently banned out. So you could even find that it still works against them in a way that they can't find another way around. Obviously, Warden isn't being picked by BDS, but what BDS are doing is just getting prepared for this meeting hatch to be dropped down into electrical, but Shaiko's not going to be too out in the open about that, instead just retreating to his original position.
The pop of utility happens and Alems, well, he's going to pull back. Not sure if they're playing with a late reinforcement as we often see, but either way, they're happy to try and just hold off, keep them at bay on elbow and make sure no ground really starts to fall in their favor. The doubling up of Umar and Jaeger is a consistent on this map. To be honest, is in a lot of EU, it limits severely what you can actually do, and Shaiko, tail tucked between legs, sprints out of the danger and sprints his way to chaos. A minute on the board, they've got control of elbow. That's about it so far from Virtus.pro in terms of the site pressure itself outside of the vertical. Now it's just seeing if they can find the bodies inside.
They've pushed the presence out of Harry Potter, but there's still the presence in Pillars. So BDS, are holding on to that control, and that's something that Virtus.pro have failed to do so far. It makes this push incredibly linear, and unless they're going to be making a late round rush where they just collapse all in and rush in, which they could do, especially as Rask opens things up, but that shot onto Shockwave is going to make it harder, they could find that they struggle. Rask does get the second. Is it going to be the third? Yes, it is. So they are going to be moving on in. 20 seconds remaining, and just 2 players left on BDS. There go the smokes and all the flashes of the Candelas. Can BDS stop this push?
Wow, Breed ALMs are going to do bits, and there's another 2 quick double kills across the board there. It was just the moment of when it came time to push. There was just still this presence of BDS, still untested. Sure, as you said, they'd pushed them out of Harry Potter. They'd got control of blue, but you needed a little bit more. Maybe a body could have been the difference there between the hit and the miss that occurred. It took heroics of Rask to even begin to scratch the surface of the hold. But unfortunately, wow. Clever girl, BDS, you're just on the side, on the shoulder, on the bush, and the Velociraptor pounces out. Kids' dorm's main hall. We step to next, and, well, I'm hoping we see a little bit more aggression against the walls of the site a bit earlier, this time from VP. To be fair, though, BDS might play it a little bit looser. That was quite a claustrophobic, in terms of bodies, hold that we're used to from them.
It definitely was. One really interesting thing about their positioning, actually, was the fact that they did have the elbow wall open, and they did have a shield out onto the tops, which you frequently see a player play behind. But actually, the player, I think it was Brede, who was positioned around there, was still inside the site. It wasn't aggressive positioning at all, which suggested that even though, you know, they didn't end up doing an early late reinforce, per se, it was quite a passive hold, which is not necessarily what I was expecting from BDS. You oftentimes see a lot of players holding up there very aggressively for a decent chunk of time. Or maybe I've just become very used to APAC, where that is definitely commonplace. But it still was a bit more passive than I necessarily suspected. In this round, I'm definitely interested to see how this is going to go. One of the really notable things that I think they will have to do is position the Maestro in games if they want to be preventing or denying the breach onto the reinforced walls of Closet, because an impact trick really is the only option they have. Actually, I say that, and he's not even bringing impacts.
One of my curiosities, I know I pointed out that we're seeing Ying for the first time in this little showdown, is what did she do last round? Because Rask was the one that led on the entry. I'm trying to remember if I heard the Candelas pop off or not. I don't think
They did. They went off.
Where did they go off?
So the smokes, this is a good question, Fluke, because the smokes went off,
yeah,
and then there was
I heard
a flash, and then I saw some white. I heard the Candelas, but the Candelas happened after a flashbang.
Okay.
So I think it was kind of to try and facilitate that push that was really opened up by Rask, because he obviously got the 3K, but there was a lot going on at once. So I didn't catch where exactly it was.
I think it's, yeah. I mean, when you see a Ying on the board and you see it in the hands of WTG, you expect it to be this kind of pacey push against the side itself. Obviously, Rask got a 4K within a round just from charging in and charging through. They obviously timed whatever they did in the back behind the blinds fan, but outside of that, you know, it starts to boil down to, okay, well, where are you going to be playing this? Is this going to be a bit of a split decision now? Because that could have been a very rewarding process if you'd taken the Ying slightly further afield, drew some attention away from the Pillars fight, taken a little bit more land a little bit sooner. This is a more spread out push. We're seeing obviously pressure going in through walk-in as Shockwave drones ahead, and they have that wall open. They have the big angles they need from the balcony, and Shockwave, it's free real estate. Going to take a little bit more of an angle. WTG throws a Candela deep and tries to flash the bodies out the back, but at the very end of the roll, it gets caught. There's a pop from Pasha to blow up anything that may be closer. There's now a Wamai that's just put on the back of the door. Great timing, great placement. And yet again, we see one wasted, and Rask gets wasted too. LMs gets the drop.
Really disappointing when you hear the noises of the Candelas, followed up by a death onto the attackers, but there's a death onto the defenders as Shaiko gets gunned down by WTG. This is where Virtus.pro are going to be looking to push in extra extra aggressively, and that's what they're doing. They put down the plant, but Pasha's going to be falling as those smokes do come out, and this gives BDS the opportunity that they need to just clear things up. Renshiro there with Bailiff. There's only one more left that they need to get, and it's a mission. He stays up for a little bit, but not long enough, and BDS managed to clear everything up, secure themselves the round, and Fluke, I'm wondering if Virtus.pro are going to have to retire the Ying dream.
I have a bit of faith. I have a bit of earnest faith in what can be done with the Ying. I think it was brilliantly played by BDS because it wasn't just that utility caught it, and we all saw the first one roll very long, caught just at the end, unfortunately. But then it was the disc that went up on the wall. The Wamai caught the next. It led to Shaiko's death, sure, because it was still within range, and they just decided, screw it, let's push it anyway and throw some standard flashes through. Either way, I'm sure that they can get it to work. It's just more down to BDS slipping up right now, because what we're seeing so far, or maybe it's just happening a little bit off screen, and we're not seeing it, is a bit of a utility burn from the hands of VP. They've obviously got 6 flashes across the board as potential burn. It's trying to whether they're going to let those go through onto WTG, whether WTG's bought those smokes just for them. However, they quite like smoke plants, so I'd be surprised. It's a hard trade right now with Capitao off the board.
I don't think the problem is necessarily that they're using the Ying badly. My point was more that they are using it to facilitate a really aggressive push at the end, and they haven't been able to make them work for themselves. BDS have been ready and waiting to secure the kills they need to. Almost every time Virtus.pro has got a kill, there's been a trade just ready to be taken by BDS. And it just makes me wonder if the approach has to be changed by Virtus.pro. And evidently the Ying is a really big part, a fundamental part of the approach they are going for. They've obviously chosen to bring it once again as they attack onto Dining, and I'm definitely willing to see it go well. I would like to see Virtus.pro apply such a pushback onto BDS. I want to see a third map, absolutely. This is for the grand finals. This is for absolutely everything, and a massive devastating loss if you don't take it. We've seen exactly what Virtus.pro have in them. I want to see it work out for them.
Waiting and baiting is the game here. We saw Leon do things beyond belief with this exact gun. Can his ex-teammate double down on the historic devastation that was spread all across the Showers Nation? Shockwave opening up the wall to the site either way, and WTG is droning themselves ahead and looks like they're primed and ready to push. Rask is going to make sure the corridor of Long is clear too, but here comes WTG. There goes the first Candela, and there goes the first Wamai charge. Caught and pushed into a corner. Alems doesn't get caught and tries to wait for a bit of attention. A second was caught on the opposite side as well. There's a deep bang to get rid of that shield, and there is almost an accidental kill on Shaiko. It could have been information, but either way, I think if it was, those shots might have been a little bit sharper towards the head, and they might have applied a bit more pressure. There is the full use of a big gun with a lot of bullets, but the pickup for VP comes through. Their shoulder cover has been pitch perfect so far, and it's no change there. Caught. Almost rotating up the white stairs. Shaiko still escapes with their life. 2 very scratchy firefights, but there is a body far away that is waiting to get a little bit closer to Brede.
VP are really having to rely a lot on their own intuition as they've lost all of their drones, Fluke. Before even halfway had gone, they had just 2 left, and now they're running on such little info, and that's exactly why things like that, a mission getting gunned down with the diffuser dropped, are able to happen. Shockwave does clap back, but isn't going to be enough. You still have these players, Shaiko so well positioned to be able to just clean up these kills. Diffuser dropped a second time, and Rask tries to peek around, but it doesn't work as Renshiro is ready and waiting, and that was just devastating from the perspective of having no information and desperately trying to scramble onto the site. Virtus.pro were definitely at a loss there.
There is always the argument to be made in what you need to get control of and how you do it on a site, and Showers is that room for this. You need that extension shutdown. You need that very important territory under your control to give yourself just a semblance of cover. Otherwise, it is a complete crapshoot of actually just trying to get inside, and you will be gunned down like fish in barrel. There, as you said, all the intel had gone. They had put so much into getting control of Showers. Alems had did so much, or had done so much, to hold on to that territory, make sure it stayed in their favor. Sure, okay, they didn't get the 4K that Leon managed yesterday, but they still took almost all of the Candelas, Zofia charges, Zofia herself, and then was picked up on the trade. At that point, all the drones had gone. Shaiko had been able to escape to a position where they could still get an amazing cross angle that could be instantly punished because there was no one to kind of cover that Zulu side. Nobody was on that backside in a position to instantly strike. We saw Bride come a few steps later, but at that point, well, Shaiko's already out of there.
Now, it's obviously a concerning scoreline at the moment, and those of you who watched the first game of the day, the upper bracket finals, will definitely be having flashbacks to when G2 were 6-0 and Virtus.pro were just sat there with nothing. And you might think, oh, well, you know, they were able to pull it back a few rounds and at least get some hope. Like, they could do that again. The difference here is that Virtus.pro were on the defense when that happened, and it was when they moved to the attack, their better side, that they sorted things out. I mean, it wasn't enough to secure themselves the round, but it was still enough to drag things back somewhat in their favor. The fact that they're not doing that great on the attack right now does fill me with concern, and it does mean that I would really like to see some change, because they are struggling. But once again, it looks like something very similar is going to be brought out from them, but the question is, are they going to be ready for this change that's been brought out from BDS? Alems did 6-pick onto the Clash, not an operator that they've played so far in this matchup. Are Virtus.pro ready to deal with the shield?
Quick fight happening around Harry Potter, and they pull back towards the ADS seclusion zone that they've built for themselves on the rotation. There is, I believe, a Wamai disc in the far opposite corner here, so Pasha's first pop will get caught, whatever the weather. There it is. And Shaiko still has enough to keep themselves cooking inside. Alems is battling back and forth on the door, sees the drone go through, which is going to give the game away of where Clash is. Zofia has rotated round to deal with this exact problem. They pulled away from the stairs, realized, well, they got to be here, but there's the disc. There's the first one caught. There's an Alems able to pull back. There's more flashes. Oh, there's a shield there this time as well. This is more utility economy that is just completely falling into France's favor right now as they're able to just pull apart what their Russian compatriots are trying to put across.
Well, I was going to say maybe they would have to be aware of magnets that are around there that would prevent the Zofia from being able to hit onto the Clash, but in fact it didn't look like that was so much of a problem, and Rafal's not going to be too close to be able to add any more to them. Instead, he's going to be back here in pillars at the doorway to the corridor, throwing out that other magnet as it does get charged up, but Pasha's going to be getting that first kill there with the Vulcan shield onto Alems. Shockwave following up as well. This is a good start here from Virtus.pro, who now, if they do decide to rush in, have the man advantage by 2 players.
Wow, a death to a Vulcan shield. How often do we see that before defenders? How often does that happen too? Rask holds an angle with the Ash, gets one, but Bride able to get the revenge as he swings round with Renshiro showing up, but a smoke canister falls to the floor, useless, as its holder is removed from the mortal plane. Shockwave goes for the post plant with Renshiro steadily making their way across. Gonna try and drop into the mix of a firefight, but, well, no use when they have every angle and every possibility covered. Virtus.pro take their first round, applying the pressure to a team that for the first time didn't seem like they had a plan to deal with it.
Now, interestingly, even though they weren't able to finish the plant because they didn't need to, that was, I suppose you could say, the first time that a team has planted on that site while BDS are defending it in EUL so far. That is actually EULs. That's actually BDS's best defendable site on this map, and no one has been able to make a plant against them just yet. So that's a really good sign for Virtus.pro. There were adaptations that were made by BDS. Virtus.pro were going for something very similar. It was a risk given how things have been going for them so far, and they made it work, not only by getting the right kills, not only by getting rid of the Clash, who was going to be the biggest problem for them, but also by being able to secure something onto BDS that no other team so far have been able to do. Now, BDS obviously don't like that their pride has been hurt there, and they've decided they're going to be returning to this site. Not with the Clash this time. They're going to return back to what they felt more comfortable on and what worked before.
I think it's a good rotation here from them. They're obviously pulling themselves back to, okay, this was working. We had an idea here and it worked well. It was a lot of utility burn, sure, and they got a little bit brash, bold, and brazen to try and push back against the Russian Bear, but well, it went the way that we saw there. Clash caught out by their own team is an unfortunate end, especially when Capital's off the board. Obviously, it makes their life a little bit easier to survive on, but it gave VP that entrance. When we were last here, I said and quoted that if they'd got one kill before it came time to the push, it probably would have gone very different for them. They might have been able to take that first round. This time they had that kill. They were in a way not gifted to it, but they're able to take the fight and win it a bit further away from the site. It was a stuck-in fight. There was no escape for the guns and the legs of BDS, and from then, well, the entire tower fell. Now it's their time to double down. See if they can try and make it happen for a second time in a row, or see if BDS is still playing a little bit too close to the fire, and well, maybe they'll get burnt.
Lem should be able to provide some extra support to his team as well, should they require it. Not only playing with the key ACOG, but having those stim shots will be huge if anyone receives too much damage. Virtus.pro are trying to be a bit more cautious and careful. I really like how they've put more attention to the tower stairs as well. There was something that we didn't see back in the first round. Everything was very lateral coming in through construction, and it really prevented them from taking much of that north side control that they desperately needed. But this time what we're seeing is a bit more care and attention being paid to the drones, which has been poor so far in this game. The economy really suffering, and also ensuring that they're going to be coming in through a more favorable angle.
Well, a lot of time wasted here to try and get out a Lems, who's playing a very aggressive game in a slightly different style here. This time he wants to lead with a gun, and, well, the Doc just had his hair cut, and I don't think he wants to try and replicate that process as a big CSX creeps a little bit closer. Not the CSX, CRX. Just putting letters in now.
Just pick some letters. It'll do.
Throw them together.
Exactly. And that smoke actually coming out in into pillars does mean that BDS have had their positioning already compromised. LM's still moving on forward. I mentioned how their positioning in elbow wasn't particularly assertive, and it's interesting how this time we did see that. Obviously with the Vulcan shield blowing up, that's going to prevent that from being able to continue, but nonetheless it was a change there from BDS that we didn't see before. Now you can hear the wall being opened by Shockwave, and he's going to be able to look in a bit better. But Shaiko does get a kill onto Pasha, that really key player. Renshiro following up as well, and right now it actually just looks like so many kills are going to be coming in for BDS.
It's the flood on the site that Rask is trying to lead in, but cooked to death by the shield that for the one time goes in the favor of BDS. Have to push through the ground. Have to unfortunately meet their fate. All viewed on a bulletproof that led everything into the hands of BDS. They knew when the pressure was going to come, knew where it was coming from, and knew how to get rid of it. They keep their rotation, keep themselves locked in, keep themselves under control, and guarantee themselves a standard split. But at this moment, can they push it to a 5-1?
Mission running in through the fire and flames at the end there. You could just tell the desperation that they needed to try and do everything they could to secure it. Virtus.pro are slowly watching their hopes dwindle away. We spoke about how this team, historically, when you look back, the first time they really appeared on an international stage was the Raleigh Major this time last year. No one knew who Fours were. They were this unknown, this underdog who made it all the way to the semi-finals. And now they found themselves in yet another major. This is the one chance they have to make it all the way to the grand finals for the first time ever. A team that people doubted, a team that maybe weren't the best for the first half of Pro League Season 11, and a team that have gradually been a name in the mouths of people, suggesting that they could be the new Russian giants after the fall of Team Empire. Everything is so close, a dynasty ready to be secured for themselves, and slowly that hope is becoming less and less tangible as BDS keep adding on to these rounds. And right now, it doesn't look like Virtus.pro have much under the radar to be able to use to claw that back.
Rafale going for a bit wide, and they're bringing what could be an intense counter to Ying. An operator we've discussed a little about how effective she's been. Well, let's see if Warden can keep their eyes on lock now, because she hasn't really been that big of a problem. The utility combination and the economy has been put forward very, very well. It surely cost the life of Shaiko, not directly to Candela, but the flood of flashes that came in behind it. At the same time, well, this is what you've bought them. This is a direct counter. Are you trusting that they're going to try and just swing onto it? Are you going to let one go through so you can strike them when you think they're going to flood in? If it goes the way of Rafale, that could just completely pull this round.
Rafale has proved that he can turn things in the way of himself, so I certainly wouldn't discount it. This is the frustrating thing about Virtus.pro, is that even when you see them have these hard times, you know they have it in them to turn things around. But going up against one of the most skilled teams when it comes to gunfights in BDS, you definitely know that this is the final boss of everything that Virtus.pro know they're good at. Shaiko, once again, is going to be positioned up in lower attic to prevent that push come in. And last time, Virtus.pro got the games wall open very quickly, and they're going to do so again as the impact trick fails. This was something that wasn't even an option last time, but it just means Renshiro is going to have to try and take that shot. Instead, he is retreating. It didn't work out for them, and that means Virtus.pro take control of that very key part of the map.
I'm a little bit curious how Renshiro was able to get through the site so easily. They had a presence on double window, had being the main word there, as Shaiko through the kid's dorms, drops the body on the opposite side. It was just a very easy, non-pressured rotation there for Renshiro to make. Yeah, he wanted the intense clutch and fight through walking at first, but he's a big guy, Maestro. He is not quick, and all it takes is a bit of a wide swing from Rask or anybody potentially paying a little bit more attention to get it. Talking of rotation, Amision has to pull off of attic and start trying to do some bits on the double window that Renshiro is now huddling and cradling and, well, waiting for this pressure.
We also have to note the very important factor that when Virtus.pro do come to use the Ying, there is a Warden on the side of BDS, who you mentioned earlier, who's going to really be a key part of that. Can Amision get that shot, though? The answer is no for now, as the Candelas come in to try and disguise the plant that's being put down by Shockwave. Eventually, Renshiro does go down, and the planter is made. Are they going to be able to do it? Trades coming backwards and forwards. It's a 2 versus 3 right now, but Shaiko is injured. A 2K from Bride, though. Is he going to be able to add on to the tally? Pasha is just looking to get around the doorways. He's the last one standing, but no, he can't do it. Alem's finishing things up with Shaiko there. Doesn't matter right now. They can disable the plant, and that's going to put BDS on a 5-1 scoreline at the half. Absolutely great play coming out from them for the most part on this map.
I like the idea that obviously they went for that clutch, and Bride, like, turned around and went, I got him, and then just turns back and sees Shaiko now dead. And it's like, Alems, what did you do? It's like, nothing. Nothing happened. Don't look.
I didn't do anything.
Nothing happened. He slipped and fell into my bullets. Laundry is where we're going to start here. Obviously, it's been a bit of a love and hate story here between these two teams, and, well, you know, how can you try and pull yourself back round here, Virtus.pro? Because your attacks so far throughout the day have been very, very good. Obviously, it led the charge on Villa. Let's not talk about the defenses of anybody, really, on Villa in the earlier day against G2. The second was back and forth. Things have slightly slipped through your fingers. However, when you were up against Rogue yesterday, the game you played, it was unbelievable defense. You were, for a lot of the parts, unstoppable. You were quick, fly, aggressive, aggro, all over the shop, and everywhere you needed to be.
3 wins to 2 losses is Virtus.pro's defensive win rate on this site, particularly. So they are sitting at a positive, and they're going to really have to rely on the fact that they do have those positives to fall back on, given how dominant BDS have been looking so far on this map. Now, obviously, things could change at the half, but BDS, of all the teams I think of when I think, what are some teams that aren't that great at attack? BDS don't really come to mind. They don't really pop up on that list, I'm going to be totally honest with you.
The thing about BDS and their attack is they are passion. If they have their plays working, if they have Shaiko pushing forward as he needs to on the entry roll, well, they become unstoppable. there's a way to stop him. Shoot him in the face. And historically, this was a problem for BDS because they used to only really have Shaiko. Then they picked up a Lems who brought some solidity to the team. They started to find their shape in terms of a plan B, which was better and better. And then they had Brede, who was the flex support that everybody wanted at that point. The best pickup that we generally saw leading into the season of EUL that just really came through for them. Now, obviously, Brede's got a little bit more work to do. Heart Destruction still on the board, has the possibility of capitalizing against Elbow and wants to try and apply the pressure to the shield. Dug in with flashes, there's still discs, and there's still ADSs to get through too. There's the first one gone. And WTG, well, with smokes in pocket, they're just going to hold on for now.
And this is that slightly more aggressive positioning that I spoke about before, and it really helps that WTG does have the support of the ADSs and the Magnus, particularly as Pasha is right by his side rather than in pillars, which is where BDS chose to place their Wamai. So it does facilitate that, and it makes it harder for BDS to be able to push through. They're also going to have to deal with the meeting hatch as well, but that has been electroclawed by Emission, and with Thatcher off the board, it makes it harder to get rid of. That means Rafal is really going to have to be in charge of that himself. BDS have half the round down, and they still haven't made much progress in being able to really push in.
The canister stems the flow and stems BDS a minute 10, and if I'm going to talk about how little ground Virtus.pro are able to take, BDS, this is currently even less. Goes for a swing, but Pasha is there. Brede gets the trade. WTG is still present and was unfortunately swapping guns at the time of the affray. There's another body moved through though, slipping through the fingers. But that's still not security. Now they're just isolated, cut off, and now one is able to be swung on. There's almost the close down. There's the knowledge that someone else is going to be firing on them, but caught reloading in the midst of it. Rafal tried to go big. Unfortunately goes home. Lems, last one left, is going to try and air jab the man out from behind pillars and push them slightly further away, but Virtus.pro, they don't fall for that.
Oh, that trade from Rask was absolutely beautiful. Such aggression being exhibited there by BDS as they really had to take what they can get. The fact that Rask was really on point, he was ahead in the game, he dealt with it, really stunted what BDS were trying to go for, the last vestiges of their plan. It meant that Alems at the end was really left to himself. You kind of try to rely on that air jab, but when the defenders don't need to push forward, there's only so much that's going to do. And that was actually a really nice defense seen there by Virtus.pro. And I think they're going to be feeling good about that as well, given that, as I said, this is their last hope. They lose this map, they lose the series, they lose their chance of going to the grand finals. And that's a devastating, devastating place to be. And so being able to feel like you can kind of bring it back in your favor, obviously a great place. Now they're going to be heading on upstairs, and I'm wondering if we'll see something kind of similar to what BDS went for last time they came to this site, as the operator lineup is very similar. You have Maestro bringing the impact, so you can expect him to be going for the impact tricking. Didn't work when BDS attempted it before, but obviously that really key thing that Virtus.pro failed to do as the attackers was prevent the Maestro from rotating back towards the big window. They gave him really free positioning. If BDS can prevent that, then Virtus.pro will find themselves in trouble. So they need to be very aware of those kinds of risks.
We're starting to see Pasha obviously playing on the Goyo role, and okay, we came in with a lot of bells and whistles about the Virtus.pro Goyo. We haven't seen a huge amount of the shields be used successfully by them. Obviously, this is, I think, the first game where we've seen it actually get kills. It's not just about kills, it's about control of the space, but they've been pretty consistently counter-stratted and shut down. Alems is just going to shut down Rask as well very early on and drop the body inside kitchen. Well droned, well read, and well fed. The ovens inside, and well, now it's time for them to take control underneath. The verticality that Buck is going to offer, a much rarer pick since losing the frag grenades, but here is a site where he can completely swan through the feet, legs, and all the other attached bits full of blood that need to be shut down by BDS.
Yeah, this is actually incredibly intriguing because I think a big part of its potential comes in the fact that Virtus.pro likely aren't expecting this sort of push. The big risk that you do run with it, though, is that you end up using a lot of your utility, including drones, before you have the option to move up to the site, and that you waste a lot of time. Obviously, there's loads still on the board, so definitely don't write that as a major issue just yet. But you have to remember that they are going to have to rotate up and make themselves safe into the site. after they've done everything with opening up the floor and dealing with that, because obviously that's where the site is. So it means things like getting games room wall open and taking attic aren't going to be points of focus right now, and usually that's what teams go for first.
A bit of a slow has hit us yet again as BDS try to measure up, but look at Pasha. Deep underneath a freezer, went on a big wide rotate and is concerned about flank watch drones or any possibility of, obviously, well, any other flank watch bits and bobs and nightmares that might strike. But no, they have been entirely able to sneak their way through, and if this is a flaw in the armor of BDS, this could be a huge strike. There goes Buck, got the read a little bit late, but there is Renshiro. You could see Shaiko was coming to guarantee the trade too. They had to make it happen, and they luckily did. And now Mission, well, he's been bought a little bit of breathing room and space. The smoke canister is going to buy him just a thread more with the 30 seconds left.
The great thing that BDS secured there was the fact that there are so many men dead on the side of Virtus.pro now that even though it was a ballsy play, it didn't work out in their favor. Renshiro getting another kill, and BDS just gets everything they need, with Shaiko finishing things off onto the low HP Mission. It was an interesting attempt at a flank from Virtus.pro there. Obviously not enough. You bring one man down, you've still got 4 standing, and the Buck probably wasn't that important at that part in the round anyway. It was fun to watch, but BDS said, "Now we still got you. We still got your number." And instead of focusing so much on pushing in to get the objective down, they just played their gunfights well. They played their positioning well. And it meant that by that point in the round, they had every advantage they needed. And now they find themselves on match point. Win this next round, and they will be facing G2 tomorrow in the grand finals.
I mean, a G2 rematch versus BDS, these stories, they write themselves. For all of us earlier making casting announcements and correlating ourselves towards Disney princesses and fairy tales, this is the tale of Siege in EU. This is the tale often said between BDS and G2. And, well, BDS want to make sure that the book reads at least in their favor this time round. Virtus.pro, you are staring at 4 rounds as an attempt to pull it back. Earlier, to be honest, you were staring at 6 rounds, and you made 4 of them work against the aforementioned G2 giant. Can you do the same here? You are more than capable enough of bringing a little bit. Maybe it's because the day has been long for you. Maybe it's because you're in a situation where BDS have just been able to have a breather, have a read, and get themselves put together. Either way, I've talked about your 6th gear. You got to find your 7th, unfortunately.
No more Maestro, instead electing to go with the Mute. And now what I'm interested to see is whether Virtus.pro opt to play some kind of a roam. That's kind of what it looks like given the placement of these Mute jammers here, because BDS are bringing the same operator composition that they did last time. Virtus.pro have had the precedent set for them as to what kind of a take BDS liked to do on this site. So they're ready for it. Rask positioned in the showers corridor. He knows that they're coming in. This is very aggressive, and if it messes up for him, this could be the end. But 2 kills already out for Virtus.pro. Maybe the fates will start to change here. BDS still have men on the board, and they still have the chance, but it's very early on, and those are some big losses.
Pasha's taken a shoulder of damage, and if I'm talking about 7th gear, VP have hit it off the mark. There, unfortunately, goes Rask. Brede is able to pull back 1 more into their favor, and now they're just concerned about keeping eyes at either side. It was a great counter in response to how they fell before, and they made sure they didn't fall from the same mistakes. It's put a little bit more of a concerned idea into the step coming forward from BDS. They want to make sure that they know where the VP players are instead of just pushing, aggressively taking. They did, to be fair, suffer the rotation at the hands of Pasha before, and, well, that's always likely when he's still on the board.
Well, this is the really important thing, right, is BDS know that they have plenty of wiggle room, they have plenty of space that they can play with. If they do lose this round, it's not the end of the world. They have a very big advantage that they can use. Now, obviously, you don't want to be giving rounds away, but it just means that they're not in some feeling of absolute desperation where they just have to run in and take what they can get. They can take the time to do the drones. They can be thorough, and that's what they need to be, as now everyone on Virtus.pro has returned to the site, and BDS are are going to have to move up in order to move in on them. Still at the man disadvantage, as the only player that Virtus.pro have lost is Rask. But we've seen what BDS can do. It's not necessarily going to be the end of the world for them, but they have to prove it.
45 seconds on when the execute starts to come from BDS historically. They know the angles they want to lock down, and a mission of players who's had a pretty good showing so far hasn't been able to find themselves in this, arguably the most important maps to make those shots count. Goyo shields being popped just under the window as 15 seconds of, unfortunately, having to be patient waiting. The canister is going to double down on that, and there's no way Nomad can get close enough to force the corner man out. The drone is instead going to get the beat and the read on the bodies inside. They have a little pocket of ground they want to try and take, but it is through an aggressive no man's land, and the timing of the swing comes out into the favor of Virtus.pro. Now it is all down to Rafal on the window, but with 3 seconds, well, it was an exit frag, and that was all it was.
Hope for Virtus.pro does continue forward, but the big thing they have to be concerned about now is the site that they made work for themselves and adapted and made the changes they required, they can't return to now that they've got a win on it. Match points still persists, of course, but this is where VP have to decide what it is they're doing next. It looks like they're going to be heading downstairs. They did take this site in round 7, so still the optimism remains. But just like Virtus.pro adapted in that last round to ensure that they could go up against what BDS were going to bring, are BDS going to do the same thing well enough to go up against what they know Virtus.pro will bring?
Laundry and supply. It was, as you said, very solid, very locked in, and a great play for how BDS, how to counter BDS even. VP knew the game that wanted to be played, and they shut it down. It was a little bit of an isolation, and I think one of the things that you talked about on the previous push on Dorms was, well, that's a bit of a different take, and I think that could work well here for BDS. If they can kind of shift the presence that they want to put here and apply, if they can maybe draw a bit of focus away from Elbow and Blue and just pull one of the VP players out of the mix, out of the problems, they might be able to lock themselves in with a bit more of a turnaround, a bit more of a capitalization upon what else is being put forward. VP in the same breath, well, what's their response going to be? Are they going to potentially assume that they'll expect that? They're going to lock themselves in with some soft doors on Freezer to get a bit of intel on the approach. Outside of then, it's down to BDS now to adapt.
I'm expecting this similar kind of supportive positioning for the defenders, and that is what we're seeing with WTG and Pasha really arm in arm, so that WTG is helped and supported in being able to take that aggressive positioning in Elbow and provide a hindrance for BDS who may want to push in through construction. A mission is obviously ready and waiting for anyone who might want to make it into meeting. That was something interesting about BDS before, is that if they wanted to open up the meeting hatch, they would have had to have sent Rafal on the Maverick up there, but he actually opted to not do that. So it could be that they do repeat that and decide to ignore the hatch, but the point still stands as he will meet some issue if he decides to head up there.
So much pressure is being applied now, and obviously they're trying to get that shield out. They've burnt ADS much better. They're also trying to bait with the air jab and get some attention on the rotation. There's the first canister on the door at the 2-minute mark. That's such an early bit of utility. Look at how much sharper this is from BDS. The time difference between getting that shield down and forcing them out of Elbow, it's a good minute quicker.
WTG straight away having to do that late reinforcement as Renshiro sent the drone in, because as you say, the utility getting destroyed makes it so much harder for Virtus.pro to be able to hold where they want to. And now they start to move back. They have the rotation ready, of course, but I don't suspect BDS will move in through the south side, but look at the control that they have here of Blue. Opening up the 2 walls, one with the Hibana pellets, one with the blowtorch, it looked like, and this is just going to give them such a point of ingress into the site.
Well, the eyes are on and the walls are open, and there's a minute for them to try and blink themselves and focus towards the body. They haven't been able to catch any of players of VP just as of yet, and that's always a big problem because VP is so talented at striking around the backside. The perfect synergy there as the crescent moon of Chaos is looking to try and collapse and grab the clawed heart. of this central site here. The drones are trying to piece apart anyone that might be on the close corners, but they can't quite see anybody just as of yet. The dancing side to side of Rask is waiting with more than bated breath on that wall to fall. The battle starts to try and happen in as they go for the plant. Swung wide. The cover wasn't as sharp as it could have been. A body falls either side and the diffuser is cold. Rafal instantly tries to get it hot and get it working again. They need to stick it if they want to lock down this collapse, but it's dropped again. There's another swing. There's another close down. It's a 2 versus 3. 15 seconds. The diffuser is watched fervently by a shotgun on the close quarters. There goes one. Another trade and another trade. A 1 versus 1. 7 seconds left. Everything to play for. Sees the barrel of the gun, but no! It fires a second too sharp. Shockwave.
So close there. BDS saw the end in sight, the light at the end of the tunnel, and Virtus.pro closed the blinds and said, no, we are keeping ourselves in this game. WTG with the shotgun. A mission, he got that original kill, got caught up in a crossfire, and it was at that point that I thought the positioning of BDS is really well structured to take this. It's going to make it very hard for any kind of a rotation to be made by these remaining members of Virtus.pro. They've spread themselves out across the basement. We had Pasha and Freezer. We had 2 of the players move back towards Laundry. At that point, you have to commit to where you are. If BDS can punish that, which they will, then this is over for VP. And it wasn't over for VP. They got those trades that they need. They brought it down to the 2 versus 2, and BDS were flying more blind than I think they really thought that they were. And now it moves on forward, and suddenly that difference in round count is really narrowing. It's still not in a safe zone for Virtus.pro. We're not at overtime yet. BDS have 2 more opportunities to take the match point into a victory, but what looked like a devastating map for Virtus.pro at the half is starting to look way more even.
6-4. The gap is slightly slimmer, and there's still, unfortunately, a bit more work left to do for VP. Oh, we're back on that 1 versus 1 thing that we saw at the very beginning before, and, well, WTG is going to try and put a stop to that with the clash, the plexiglass wall that stops a lot of teams. Didn't have the best success earlier on this map in the hands of BDS. Can WTG make it work a little bit more solidly? Because, well, you really have to make it work right now. This is all you've got left, all the time, all the breath, all the possibility of putting yourself in that final against a lot of expectations. You've already done so well, but unfortunately today hasn't fallen in your favor just yet. Now's the time to try and flick that luck.
Well, this is going to be a really big risk for Virtus.pro because this is a site that they have to come to now after having 2 straight victories on the other 2 primary sites. But this isn't a site they've had loads of luck on in the past. Only 1 win out of 3 times coming here on their defensive rounds. It means that they're going to be doing this with bated breath, feeling very... Well, I'd hope they're feeling confident, but I suspect that it is going to be weighing on them somewhat. Rafal's drone is just right there watching Rask. I think he knows that there is a drone around, but he can't necessarily...
It's just...
Yeah, there we go.
Just waiting.
He got it.
He's trying to get it as a pet, but it didn't quite work. Shaika wants to apply the pressure onto Zulu here and is looking to see if they can dig in the angle against Rask, but, well, they don't want to burn that utility and that economy just yet. A minute 30... And it seems like so far, I was about to say a similar story to the first push on Laundry, but Renshiro shows up from wherever he is and blows out the man in the corner of Zulu. There's the body just in the school bus and pops the grenade perfectly to get that.
I mean, that's not great because you don't want to be losing control of the shower's corridor, but you can't exactly have anyone else move forward. And now Shockwave has gone down as well. Rafal adding on to that with Pasha. Just 2 men left remaining, Fluke, and there's 5 players of BDS.
And it's really, really starting to collapse now. They're going to have to do more than the heroics they've put through before. And it's all down to a clash. I said she might have been the stem and the flow, unfortunately. Can't even begin to make it happen. BDS, you have 1 more chance to take care of G2. Whether that's more important to you or not than taking the major, I guess that's the story. We'll have to find out tomorrow. Virtus.pro, you came so far and played so well, and everyone's so excited to see where you go, but unfortunately, today is just not your day.
Virtus.pro, the team who got into this major on a technicality and made it further than anyone thought they would, beating out the favorites to get through and making it all the way here. They didn't make it to the grand finals. A flawless round ensured